Okay, so this is a card that I just did about. It says, "How long have you gone without sinning?" Then this is a second question that this teenager did. This is a card that teenagers have submitted at a retreat, and it's called Impact of City Gospel Mission. So this is a really good question. It says, "Why did some of the Bible people get new names?" Second question from this individual. What does it say? Why did some of the Bible people get new names? I don't know. Well, I'm going to attempt it. So, names, by the way, at least in the ancient times, particularly in the Hebrew, I don't know about other nations and all. I haven't studied the other civilizations, but among the God's people, the Hebrew people, names are very, very important. And it's fun to try and look at the root of the names and what they meant. And um, some of them nailed it exactly who they were, like Nabal, Nabal, which means fool, which he was. And then there's Jacob, Yaakov, who was a deceiver. That's what he was. He was a twister, a cheater. And his name was changed. There's one in the Bible. Let's talk about him for a second. He wrestled this angel. He was, long story short, he was going to meet his brother the next day, his twin brother, who in the past was out to kill him. And this was like, I think, 14 years later. And he came and he heard that he was on his way with hundreds of people. I don't know. I can't remember how many, 300 or something like that. I don't know. Could be wrong on that. And he was scared. And an angel, and I think that angel really could have been Jesus Christ. Jesus is not an angel. Hebrews 1 proves that. But the angel of the Lord, angel means messenger. And so the angel of the Lord, it seems like in certain passages, I'm not going to go on that. You could ask that question. I can go into it later. It seems to be actually Jesus Christ himself. So whatever, it was a being, a holy being, could have been an angel. I think it was Jesus, wrestled Jacob. And Jacob knew that this is not just a human individual or something. So he wrestled him basically all night. And then at the end of the night, the angel said, "What is your name?" As if he didn't know, but he's wanting him to say it. He knew. Yaakov, Jacob. And up to that point, he kept twisting he was really, especially earlier, he got his way by manipulation and using it wrong. And he kind of reaped what he sowed in the last 14 years. Different part of the story. Anyway, so he said, "Your name is going to be Israel, Yisrael, or whatever." And that means prince of God. Um, and so his name was changed, and that's where we get Israel. The name Israel that became a land, and the people of Israel, Israelites, and all that. So that was very cool. And he wrestled with him, and he became a prince, wrestler with God. There's another meaning to that word. I can't remember exactly. That kind of means prince with God. Like he kind of won in that wrestling match, so to speak. He walked away with a limp because his hip was kicked out of socket, and he had that for the rest of his life, a limp. But to remind him, I think, of that match. But he was conquered by God. And that's another meaning, I think, of the word Israel. I'm not sure. But that's one. And then you go to the New Testament. Oh, my. Jesus gave Simon Peter. That's another really popular one. Um, by the way, let me jump to that in a second. Let's go over to another name that people think his name was changed when he had his conversion, Saul, Shaul. Um, and his name wasn't changed. Sorry if you've been taught that. It's no big deal. It's not a big thing. It's kind of minor. But it's inaccurate. His name was not changed at conversion. People think he went from Saul to Paul. Well, if you read it carefully, in Acts 9, he was saved. That's when he met Jesus. Or he met Jesus 3 days later. He gave and really had a full conversion. But he encountered Jesus. And then in Acts 13, 4 chapters later, it says, "Then Saul, who was also called Paul," his name was still Shaul, Saul. That's a Hebrew name. Paul, Paulos, was the Greek name for Saul. Like my name in French, I think is Gaston, and my name is Gordon, but my name in French was Gaston. It has nothing to do with the bees, like Beauty and the Beast. But anyway, so So it's just a different way of saying your name in a different language. And Paul became a great apostle, an apostle especially to the Greeks, the Gentiles, although he still ministered a lot to the Jewish people, his people. But God called him especially, so he used that name, Paulos, because it was a Greek name. So now Simon has three names. It's Cephas, or Cephas, probably Cephas, Simon, and then his change name was to Peter, which is little rock, little stone. And Simon was the Jewish name, the Hebrew name, which came from Simeon. A lot of them kind of passed down names they took, like Saul was from King Saul, and they had a tradition of using past names, and people still do that today, right? Like you get your grandfather's name, a lot of your great grandfather, you're something the third or the fourth or whatever, and they want to keep that tradition, that family lineage of using the same names. Well, Peter was the Greek name, by the way. Cephas was, I think, the Latin name or the Aramaic name, maybe, and Simon was the Hebrew name. So he had all three names used. But Jesus literally gave him Peter for a purpose. So the question was, why did some of the Bible people get new names? Jesus saw him the very first time he met him. Andrew brought him to him, and Simon, Bar son of John, Jonas, he says, Bar Jonas. And he says, your name shall be called Peter. Now, why did he do that? If you look at it, I think there's a reason for it. And Jesus, by the Spirit of God inside Jesus, Spirit of God had come upon him, and now he's speaking of the word of knowledge and doing all these miraculous things. And well, he hadn't done miracles yet, but anyway, he saw him, and God gave him word of knowledge for his future. And he became a remarkably stable, very strong leader, a pillar of the church, probably the top leader. And amazing that God chose him and did it for him, because he was like this. You ever feel like you're up and down as a Christian, you're doing great, and then you blow it like crazy? He blew it royally over and over. This is the one that said, I'm never going to deny you, when he denied him that night 3 times. Didn't say, he's cursed, and he said, I don't know this guy, Jesus. He just rejected Jesus. Oh, it's really horrible. But God made him a very powerful, strong person in God. So names identify a lot of times what type of character you are, or what type of person. And Jesus saw that from jump when he first met him, that he was going to be a great guy. All right, that's just a couple things. That's why they changed names, that God actually identified something special in that person. By the way, you're going to get a new name if you're a Christian. And that new name, this is in the book of Revelation, chapter 2 or 3. It says going to give a white stone. He's going to give you a new name that nobody else is going to know but you and him. What is that all about? Well, I think, and this is just my hypothesis, I'm guessing. My conjecture is that God is going to give you and me a name that identifies the sweetest, deepest part of our souls down inside that maybe no one else quite has. God has he names all the stars, by the way. It says it in Isaiah 40. He also said it in the Psalms. Like, he named all the stars. I don't think he said Joe 1, Joe 2, Joe 3. I think each star, there's trillions of stars, has their own name. And so he can make up all sorts of names. He's going to name something about you that I think he's going to call you and nobody can hear it. I think this is my imagination here. But it says nobody's going to know that name except you. So I think God can call your name, and it's going to be so touching to know that one sweet, tender, great part about you that nobody else quite has. Exactly. Pretty cool, huh? All right, God bless you. So if you want to write a question, put it in the comments below, and I'll see if I can answer it.